So then, we are back with the modern understandings from the Renewed Covenant, from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation is from the original documents of the Hebrews of old, the holy prophets of Israel, speaking of prophecies coming from heaven, the true Creator, Yahweh. And then we can understand the future events of our age, of our planet. And then also we have the privilege of learning the many layers of the prophetic related with the divine. These days where then we understand more of these prophetic and also secular, we then can verify precisely the country of China being the very last leader of the secular leadership of this world until it ends, and then how we should relate with it, and then be more certain of what's coming in the future. And we understand that China has already infrastructure and enough leadership in their own country to take on this worldwide task. And obviously the previous videos did show many understandings of their policies, and also the tiny skirmishes going on in the South China Sea, and the sea obviously of the South China. They are disputing some of the ownership of those islands, but those are very tiny regarding the end of times. Should not spend a whole lot more deal of time in those areas, because comparing with what they have in front of them, it is very big. It's extremely big, and what's coming then should be very wise on how to handle worldwide trade exchange. And if they could delegate delegation of people to take care of this minute problem in South China Sea, it would be very favorable for them to start already making deals with Mid-East, and then it should be ready for the Europe's breakage of the euro. It's extremely important for them having a preparation of software trade systems, and then having links with the particular countries, explaining their own trade language, and then being prepared also for the Mid-East, on how the Mid-East they are going to come out of their wars. As we understand, wars are absolutely prohibited. It's a time of rebuilding. So then the same language software should be used obviously in the Mid-East, so then they can ensure delivery of cargo escorted, then peace would be served. However, in South China Sea, the skirmishes are extremely tiny. It is absolutely amazing what's coming in the near future, and they should be prepared for it. And they knew, their dynasty knew centuries ago that they would be then leaders at the end. At their own writings of their own culture, they did many times have these recorded. They would be leaders in the future. So the time truly has come. But then the world should then be more educated and understanding than the holy prophecies, and make whatsoever they can to ease up for them to expand. Because then the countries and the nations, they can have their own materials to rebuild themselves, making it then wars completely, absolutely obsolete. Because the new trade truly is then the trade of language, of understanding how they do their own trade related with many countries. So then individuals can also be part of it. And as we understand it from the holy records, the nations of the world would do trade with her, and there is no way out of it. So then what we are experiencing from China at the moment and their expansion, we should not be afraid of wrongly understanding there would be then a threat to the world system, because the enlightenment that came from heaven related with these system is not related with invasion. It is purely related with trade. in order for war to cease. So then Yirmiyahu's prophecy becomes absolutely true. So we should not be afraid of them, because it's a purely emancipation of trade, not of invasion. At the moment they are being defensive because many countries are then intruding in their space of trade. And that's the point, that we should retrieve from there and let them resolve their skirmishes, because it is birth of a new system, or then the pains of birth, so to speak. They are growing so much, and then many countries are being involved in areas that they shouldn't be. And we should do our best as United States not to influence in any part or be then invaders in their own space, for our own benefit, because as they begin then to emancipate and deliver their cargoes to those troublesome areas, then indicates that they are using their military for the escorting of those, and then we can retrieve. Because they have a purely trades understanding. They have no wanting of any kind, and they do not want to take over any other countries. They simply want to do trade. And that's why they were for centuries building up and building up for this time. So we should try to do our very best to make sure they receive what they must, and then the nations can start rebuilding. There is no reason for fear, no reason for cyber war and any kind of electronic war. That's absolutely stupidity. They are not involved with it. They simply want to expand as they were then predicted. So it's our task then, being very wise, and then let them very slowly begin to take on the responsibility. Because the war is going to be over very shortly, understanding the time and season, because then at the moment they begin to have those ships delivered with the cargo, then they're going to observe then escorting, and they're going to refrain themselves from war. As we understand, our country wants to develop our own resources in extraction of our own petroleum, natural gas. These, in a natural understanding, we would then cut back in our importation from the Middle East. So then we can rebuild. And as a result, obviously, China would have to have more petroleum. So what we don't consume, then China does. So there is a very unique balance of situations at the same time working absolutely perfectly. That is the divine hand spoken of by Yirmiyahu. So then we can gladly make plans for the future and no longer fear of what's coming in the future, because we already know what it is. And it is very positive if we work. We must do our part and understand the end of the secular rulership of the Gentiles and being part of it. There is no reason for any more wars and rumors of wars. Those times are gone. We are living during the time of the rebuilding. And marvelously, Yahweh has provided the rebuilding of His own, plus the rebuilding of the Gentiles. And He has granted the world a time of peace. But then every single individual citizen of this planet should shun war. He should be absolutely repudiated of the utmost and avoid war, avoid arms, conflicts, wars of any kind. Then we are acting as per Yahweh's agenda. Then we receive the benefits from. So obviously at this point there are a lot of people preparing themselves, and they're going to be courageous of confronting conflicted areas and have them stop the conflict, and teaching them from the instructions what Yahweh has shown to the world so far, then the presentation of the Messiah, what he came to do, the first service, second service, the purpose of the second service, the first anointing, second anointing, and then the time of the end of the deceit, and then the rulership from the first 1,000, the other 1,000, a couple thousand on top of it, and precisely where we are at. Because the prophecies of Yahweh are absolutely most precision. But those must be interpreted, and Yahweh at the moment he is standing behind of those promoting peace, based upon his holy schedule. And speaking of the other layers, then Ezekiel you find in the 38th chapter, and you find in Daniel the 12th chapter, and those also must be explained in details, layered, so people can position themselves in this new era that we are living in. There won't be any other rulership other than China's rulership. There is no other country would be able to match them. No other system able to match them. So the best then we join of these last days trade system, because the intent is purely for trade. There is no evil intention behind it. And the huge clue of it, the very country, China, never fought a war of invasion. So then you observe what Yahweh has done so far. He has provided a country that was never involved in invasion of a war, providing equipment, providing materials at very inexpensive price, and then escorted. The military is simply for escorting.